Hi, my name is John. In this video I'll talk a little bit about iPad implementation, specifically my brainstorm around that prior to actually engaging in it, just some thoughts around it. Well, anytime you have a large innovation or a large change, there tends to be typical responses to that change. And I think a quick Google search will turn up what the typical stages are that people go through. The first stage is often characterized as shock or surprise, followed by denial, and then that's followed by anger, followed by bargaining, trying to bargain a way out of the change. And then when none of that works, then there's depression, and over time acceptance of the change, and then still later people move on. So those would be kind of the typical stages for response to change. When it comes to the implementation of educational technology, I really like to focus on another stage, which is people taking ownership of that change over time, almost to the point where they thought it was their idea to begin with. So let's say, for example, back in the day when internet did not exist, laptops did not exist, I could imagine teachers at that time saying, we don't want to use these things in our teaching and learning. What we do works. And today I think most teachers would be pretty upset if you took away their laptops and the internet. They've taken ownership of it, and they do a lot of creative and interesting work with those tools. So in the same way, can we implement iPad such that over time people will take ownership of that technology and be happy to have that technology. Next, I'll share a little bit of my own strategy for implementing education technology. And first, I'll do it by giving you a little bit of a story. Once upon a time, there was a castle, and in this castle lived a group of people. They weren't so very happy because one day two of the queen's envoys showed up, and they said, "In the name of the Queen, open up. We've been sent here to make improvements to the way you do things." And the people inside the castle said, "We don't need any improvements. We like what we're doing, and we like the way we're doing it." And the Queen's envoy said, "Well, this is the Queen's orders. You've got to do it." And they said, "No, we're not opening up." And now the envoys had two choices. They could get a battering ram and go right into the castle, and they had the authority to do that, or they could try another strategy. So let's explore a scenario where they try another strategy, and they notice off in the distance that there's a farm, and they say to the people in the castle, "We see that you've got a farm over here and the equipment's broken down, and so we're going to fix up that equipment, and you'll be able to farm better and increase your yields." And the people in the castle think, "Oh, that's pretty good, thanks for doing that. We're still not letting you in, though." And then, so they say, "Well, we see that you have some houses over there too. The roofs need some repair. We'll fix up those roofs. We'll oil the doors, and there it is." And the people in the castle think, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm glad they're doing that." Still not ready to let them in. And then they say, "Oh, you have a mill over there, and the water wheel is, there's some trouble with that water wheel. It needs to be fixed. So we'll fix it up for you, and you'll be able to grind all your grain there all that much better." And by this point, the people in the castle are pretty happy, and they say, "Oh, you know what? Okay, you guys have done some good work for us out there, and we'd like to bring you into the castle, into the heart of things, because we think you can do, maybe really you can help us make some improvements here." And so that's them being happy. And what does all of this story mean? I call it the outside-in approach. And it starts by taking stock of the whole teaching and learning ecosystem. We often think of teaching and learning as, really the classroom, our interaction with students, the content that we're using, our teaching strategies. And I like to think of teaching as learning and learning much more broadly. And for teaching and learning to work in a big institution, it has a lot of peripheral elements that enable that core. And people, as I said, they're hesitant to let others into the core. They've got this kind of wall up. Well, what's out on the periphery? Things like course information, course outlines, syllabi, timetabling for students, classroom administration things that all the teachers have to do, communication with colleagues and with students, course management systems, a variety of them, professional development, and who knows what else. One of the things I sometimes think about is how can I attack these things on the periphery, maybe using something like an iPad, to make the lives of teachers and students better, and just to generate usage, meaningful usage. So that's one approach to look at it, and then through that, over time, you create this culture of using these devices and the technologies associated with them, and then you can get into the core. Now, we probably don't have time to do that where we are right now. We probably need to move a little more quickly. And so we can carve out a couple of slices out of that pie, teaching and learning pie. And which slices will those be? I don't quite know yet, but certainly it's feasible to take a couple slices out. Doing the whole pie would be quite a trick, but taking a couple slices would be, I think, feasible. What does it mean to have an iPad, to use an iPad, and to implement it? Well, anytime you're implementing some kind of educational technology, you're targeting two things. Your goals are efficiency, increased efficiency, and increased effectiveness. You either want to do something faster or you want to do something better. And so up there it says go for wins. And that's kind of my strategy is rather than taking on a really big thing, I'll go for a bunch of small things and accumulate those wins. But as I say, we may not have the time to do that. We may need to go right for the gusto and get those grand slam home runs as well. So iPad, we bring it in. It's a new ed tech. It's an innovation, educational technology, an ed tech innovation that we're bringing in. So it should have some efficiency or effectiveness component to it. Also, when we're talking about iPad, we're really talking about communicating with colleagues, with students. We're talking about absorbing information in a variety of ways. We're talking about producing work. iPad is not the only device that can do that. So we need to focus on the strengths of the iPad in an implementation over time. And my recommendation is don't use the iPad for something that can be done better on another device. I mean, if you're already doing something at a pretty good level, why would you scale back from that? In a way, you're kind of hamstringing yourself. So it would be, in a way, it'd be more logical to target the iPad's strengths. And this is a little bit difficult because it's a new technology on the education scene. We don't totally know what the strengths are. But some of the strengths are that it has a high level of portability. It's likely to be carried around to places where the laptop would be left behind. The software is very user-friendly on an iPad. All the little apps have been made specifically so that they're very user-friendly. The iPad, something very distinct about it is its touch interactivity. And the laptop, you don't really have that. So you can touch things, resize them, get them to pop out, so on and so forth. Multimedia, of course, goes hand in hand with touch interactivity. Audio, video, text, graphics, animation, all kinds of things. Quizzes, interactive stuff. As well, the iPad, in my opinion, it's more immediate. Like you don't have to wait for it to power up. You just click the button and it's on, and you just swipe it and everything's open for you. The laptop seems to take more time. There's more layers to it, depending on what software you're going into and the rest of it. The iPad is very much kind of in your face, and for that reason, it's also almost a better device for social stuff, for communicating, than a laptop is. Let's go back to touch interactivity and multimedia for a moment. How could you explore that, getting away from the laptop and more into the the iPad and an iPad in students' hands, for example, well, let's just talk about course outlines. If you took a course outline and made it more visual, and that's what that diagram is, you can't see it very well, but a while back I made a diagram of the Call 140 course and kind of charted out all the skills in it. Now, if you had something that was visual like that on the iPad, and a student was able to touch one of the squares and it would pop out and would list all of the things in that square, and maybe this is a new student and they don't really know what some of these things are, and they touch on one of those things, and then it takes them to other resources like videos or digital books or something like that. I think then you're starting to explore the just-in-time immediacy and usefulness that an iPad perhaps can bring. Okay, so in the end, what do you want? You want teachers to be able to do their jobs better somehow, more efficiently, more effectively. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure out exactly what that's going to look like, but I mean, that is the aim, right? Why institute an educational technology if you're not going to get some payback from it? You also want the teachers to be able to teach more dynamically through this device and the associated technology. On the side of students, you want them to be able to learn whenever and wherever. You want them to be able to get help whenever they need it. In general, I think those are some basic goals that an iPad implementation might shoot for. In summary, what is the teaching and learning ecosystem? How can iPad be strategically targeted to parts of that ecosystem? And are there a couple of pieces of the teaching and learning pie that can be carved out right away? Going to the second point, as I was making this whole presentation and I wrote down PD at one point, it struck me, I wonder if instructors are resistant to iPad because they themselves don't have much of a need for it. And I wondered, well, what if we made like an iBook or something with regard to iPad where instructors had to go to the iPad in order to get that benefit? So if there were some elements of PD that were iPadded, for example, and this was starting to create a culture for the instructors around using iPads, right? So even before they become producers, turning them into users, acclimating them to the technology. And that was kind of right around understanding the ecosystem, the ed tech ecosystem for the teaching and learning. In any case, that's the end of my presentation, and there it is. Thank you.